physical preparation for grapplers when you're not 25 anymore, or really for any other sport, the same rules kind of apply. But you know, the way you should look at grappling is kind of like a car. You have a car and a driver, and if your driver is really good, that's great. But if you have a shitty car with a good driver, you're still not going to do as well as when you have a good car and a good driver. Now obviously if you have a good car and a shitty driver, it's not going to work either. But that's kind of the same. The driver is your brain, knowing all the techniques, the tactics, the positions and submissions and whatnot. So that's like knowing how to do it. But then you've got your body, which is the car, which is the thing that you have to do it with. And if your body doesn't work as well, then even if you are a very technical driver, you're just not going to be able to perform as well as you potentially could. So let's look into what you need, how you need to prepare, what you need your body to be able to do to perform optimally as a grappler or fighter or whatever. Now the first thing is you need a strong foundation. The number one thing that prevents people from progressing optimally is of course injuries and pain. When you're in pain, you can't move optimally, and when you can't move, you cannot train, and when you cannot train, you cannot progress and learn better. Sorry, my dog is walking here, or I'm walking my dog, but sometimes he walks me a little bit. So if I move in weird directions, he gets a little yank on the leash. Anyway, so the number one thing what we want to do is reduce pain and prevent injuries, or at least decrease the chance of injuries happening. So we need to make your body not fragile and make it solid and build a good foundation. And that foundation really is mainly there's 6 muscle groups, which are your hamstrings, glutes, lower back, abs and obliques, so really your entire trunk or core, if you want to call it that. And then your upper back, the muscles in between your shoulder blades, so lower traps, middle traps, rhomboids, and the muscles on the back of your shoulders, rotator cuff, rear delts. Those muscles, they tend to get weak in a lot of people, and when they are weak, they will make your body much more likely to get injured. And in all, I've fixed a lot of people's injuries, and 9 times out of 10, it's one or more of those muscles that's causing the injury, or at least one of the big causes for it. So for example, if your glutes are weak, you're at much more risk of hurting your lower back and your knees. If your hamstrings are weak, you're at much higher risk of hurting your knees and possibly also your lower back. Obviously, if your lower back and your abs are weak, you're much more at risk of hurting your spine. And if your upper back and your rear delts and rotator cuff are weak, you are much more likely to get hurt in your shoulder. So this is when, I help somebody with their injury. A lot of the attention goes to building these muscles back up. Even if you're not injured, why not focus on building those muscles in the first place so that you don't get injured in the first place? I'm not saying if you train these muscles, it's impossible to get injured. Of course, if you don't tap to a submission, stuff's going to go when it's going to go. But being strong there gives you stability in the joints, and that really solves a lot of your problems. So I highly recommend, like what I personally do, 80% of my gym time I spend on those 6 muscle groups. And I highly recommend you to do the same thing, because when you get stronger at those muscles, when those muscles become stronger than they are now, you will grapple better, and that's a promise. So not only does it reduce your chance of getting injured, you are just going to feel stronger, and you're going to even improve your mobility as well, because the thing is, muscles and joints, they don't get tight for fun. Your nervous system tightens them up out to protect your joints from injury, out of fear of injury, to make up for a lack of strength, usually in one or more of those 6 muscles. So when you build those 6 muscles up and they are strong, there's no need for your nervous system to create that excessive tension in those other muscles, and they become looser and you move better and your mobility is better. So train those 6 muscles, spend 80% if not more of your gym time on those muscles, because in jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, we don't work those muscles a lot. Now, abs, we do work, of course, a lot, but the other muscles, glutes, hamstrings, lower back, often yeah, they just don't get as much work in jiu-jitsu. In wrestling a bit more, but jiu-jitsu not that much. And same thing for the upper back and rear delts. They are chronically overworked in most grapplers, probably including you. So in the gym, you always want to do the opposite of what you do on the mats. So you gotta, balance yourself out. And come on, Charlie. Oh, there's a dog coming. So you want to balance yourself out and spend time on those 6 muscle groups. And how you train those muscle groups, there are many options. There's not one specific implement that is better than others. Kettlebells are not better than dumbbells, and machines are not better than barbells, and barbells are not better than machines or kettlebells or whatever. Everything can work, but the most important thing is actually not training them like an athlete. So don't try to focus on the movement, but kind of spend your time there like a bodybuilder and learn to feel those muscles again for that foundation building training. Like feel the muscle working. So pick exercises where you can focus on the contraction and really feel the muscle working. Don't worry too much about how much weight you're using or how many repetitions you're doing with this type of training. Just focus on working the muscle, feeling it, and let the weight and the repetitions be secondary to feeling the muscle working. Now there is a space, a room also for focusing on how much weight you can lift and all that, but that's more performance training. First you need to build the foundation, and the problem with focusing on the weight or the repetitions is that you often end up doing you're starting to use the wrong muscles, and you're already doing that in jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, you're not thinking about like, I gotta tense my lat or my upper back to pull this guy towards me or whatever. You're just doing it. But in the gym, you don't need to worry about, I need to lift so many kilos or so many kilos. Just focus on feeling the muscle working and kind of training like a bodybuilder, which sounds counterintuitive because you don't necessarily need to be a bodybuilder, but to be a good athlete, you need, and a good grappler, you need to have the muscles, and you need to first be able to feel them before you can use them properly. Now, if you do have some real limitations in one or more of your joints, or you have an injury, you also are going to need some tuning, which is what I call it. But it's basically mobility work, loosening up your muscles, maybe using a foam roller or a ball, or doing body tempering, using an external heavy weight like a bar or some kind of specific roller for it. To loosen up your muscles, you could use bands to do traction on your joints, but active mobility exercises, but things to, if something is really stiff, then you do need to kind of even it out and loosen it up. You can do this before your foundation training, or you can do it in between, or you can do it after. It doesn't really matter when you do it, as long as you do it. Now, first, if something is very mobile, flexible already, you don't need more of it. So find the parts of your body. So maybe it's your ankles, maybe it's your hips, maybe it's your shoulders, maybe it's your spine. Find what is stiff, and then specifically spend time on improving that. So you got to do the tuning on an as needed basis. If you're naturally very flexible and you don't have pain, you don't need much of it. Just spend most of your time on the foundation building. If you're naturally very stiff, then you might need a bit more tuning and mobility work, and you should spend a bit more time on it. So do it on an as needed basis. But the foundation building, that's really the foundation. That's the most important, and your mobility will improve from that as well. Then the third part is the performance training, and this really you have to earn. If you are injured, if you have not much energy, you've been training a lot on the mats, and you have to train again tonight or tomorrow or whatever, then you don't want to do high performance training, meaning like you don't want to go for a super heavy deadlift or super heavy bench press or whatever. Save yourself to fight another day. And that doesn't mean you should never go for a heavy weight or anything like that, because it can be really beneficial also to teach your muscles to all work together. Whereas with the foundation muscle training, you focus on feeling the individual muscle. But when you do the performance training, let's say you do a clean or a snatch or kettlebell swings or whatever, you don't think about the individual muscle, but you think about completing the movement. And having everything work together, which obviously is going to make you stronger. So that's a good thing. But don't forget, on the mats, this is what you're doing already as well. So especially if you're doing takedowns and stuff like that, it's basically like deadlifting in a way. You're using all your muscles together to to pick the guy up and take him down and whatnot. So if you do hard sparring, that is kind of like compound lifting already, and that is why I don't think you should focus on the compounds too much in the gym and spend most of your time on the foundation building. So that's the 80%. However, 10%, do some compound movements if you can, if you don't have pain, if you don't have limitations, and you can do them properly, then every once in a while there is nothing wrong with going heavy. Just manage your fatigue. If it's Friday night and you have Saturday, Sunday, you don't have any training, then you can push it in the gym and you can push it a bit harder, no problem. But if it's Wednesday and you're training still Wednesday evening and maybe Thursday evening and maybe Friday evening as well, you want to be on the mats, then don't exhaust yourself by doing a crazy squat or deadlift session in a gym, but keep it lighter so you can recover from it. And ultimately you want your lifting to help your grappling, not take away from it. Now, personally, instead of doing traditional kind of bodybuilding powerlifting moves like squat, bench, deadlift for the performance part of my workouts, I really prefer to do Olympic lifts or variations thereof and gymnastic. Come, Charlie. Oh, there's the car again. The dog. So I prefer to do gymnastic ring exercises, which are kind of isometric static holds, and the Olympic lifts, where you learn to first move slow and then explode and then catch again, which is much more similar to what you do in grappling. The kind of controls, where you're grinding a rep out. That doesn't really happen in grappling, at least very, very little. But you do want to be able to hold and control someone and then quickly let go and boom, advance to the next position, then hold and control again. So that's why I think doing the Olympic lifts and the like some gymnastic ring variations like modified front lever, modified iron cross. Now I'm not at least able to do like a full iron cross holding it, but even holding it close to your body builds up a lot of shoulder stability and strength and controlling isometric strength. And the Olympic lifts build power, plus they also really work those foundation muscles that we talked about earlier, extending your body with your upper back, your lower back, your hamstrings, your glutes, much more so than doing deadlifts or squats. Plus, with the Olympic lifts, you have to use lighter weight, which makes it easier to recover from, and it's not going to make you as sore and as tired, which of course is good, because tonight somebody's going to try to choke you out again and you don't want to be all beat up. Now, of course, there's no absolutes, just if, buts and maybes. So sometimes you can go for some benching or some deadlifting or some squatting. Nothing wrong with it, but in my opinion, most of the time I think using Olympic lifting variations or even doing similar stuff with kettlebells, like kettlebell swings and stuff like that, is better to build explosive power, and just because it's easier to recover from. And then the fourth part in my workout I call beauty building. Usually this is done at the end after the performance training, and this is just a couple of exercises, 5 to 10 minutes, just to get a pump. So I usually do some biceps, some triceps, some more shoulders, and I just like to get a pump. If you're you think you want to build up some other part of your body, if you're a woman and you want to build your butt, you can do some extra glute exercises or whatever. It doesn't really matter, just do whatever you like to do just because you want to and it's fun. Nothing wrong with that. So that's basically my workout or my training system in a nutshell, although it did take me about 14 minutes to explain it. But 80% is foundation building for the 6 foundation muscle groups, which I'll repeat it again: hamstrings, glutes, lower back, abs, obliques, upper back, and rear delts / rotator cuff. So do mostly isolation exercises for them when I can really feel the muscle working, but also sometimes compound exercises, but I just don't go as heavy. I can still focus on really squeezing the muscle and feeling the muscle work. In between, I do some mobility stuff sometimes if I need it. Then the performance training, I usually do some kind of Olympic lift variation, and I like to mix in, so just superset it with a gymnastic hold movement, and sometimes I do something for abs. And in between here, I often do some unrelated mobility work as well when I'm resting. So I might do, one of my favorite setups is to do a snatch grip high pull, and then I do an L sit in the rings, which also works my abs. And then, I just do a little calf stretch or an ankle mobility exercise or a little hip stretch or whatever. Instead of just sitting doing nothing, might as well do something useful to loosen my body up. And on this I go heavier, but I don't max out, I don't go crazy. I always think, I want to live to fight another day. I don't want to make myself too sore. So I keep a lot in the tank so that I can train again tomorrow or tonight or whatever, both on the mats and sometimes in the gym as well. And then I finish up with some beauty building, some more pump stuff if I want to, just some arms, some shoulders, just because I like it. And of course it does help for jiu-jitsu as well to have good arms, but if I'm honest, it's just because I like to have nice arms. And that's really the most important thing when you are not just lifting. Somebody who's just lifting in the gym 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week and nothing else, they can go balls to the wall every session and train really hard and smash the muscle. But if you are doing another intense sport like grappling, but it could be golf for all I care, it doesn't really matter. But like any intense sport that you're doing, you gotta keep in mind, okay, why am I lifting? Is my lifting the number one thing, or is my other sport the number one thing? For me, I don't really care about lifting, so I'm lifting way less than I used to lift when I was just lifting, and I'm lifting way less weight than all the other guys in the gym. But I've learned to not really care about it anymore, because tonight there's some big guy trying to rip my arms apart again, and I want to prepare for that and be prepared for that, and not too beat up and tired and exhausted from my gym workout. So of course you have to plan it around a little bit, on days where you feel great, sometimes you can take advantage of it and go a little bit harder. On days where you're tired, just do a little bit. It's a lot better than nothing, and it's also a lot better than doing too much. So that's a long video for now. I'm gonna keep it at this. If you got any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, Charlie.